There's an important scene where we learn that 1955 Doc has an inkling of the trouble awaiting him in 1985. It's when Marty walks in on Doc watching the video footage of his trial time travel run. Before he notices Marty enter the garage, Doc is caught playing and replaying the part where the tape stops, and where his clock will stop, figuratively speaking. It's reasonable to assume that the man smart enough to build a time machine is also smart enough to understand what the footage implies, with or without help from Marty. Since Doc has already sniffed the truth, with each and every unsuccessful emotional attempt from Marty to share the specifics, he moves Doc's suspicions closer to certainty. Going by his own hypothesis, Doc might suspect that his suspicions are themselves a sufficient enough change to the space-time continuum, and that everything else is a wash. If we apply the butterfly effect of chaos theory to Doc's dilemma, we concede that time travel itself is a disruptive, transformative occurrence. In other words, there's nothing Doc Brown can do in time or time travel that will not impact the future, and in a somewhat unpredictable manner. It then reduces to a question of quantity and quality of change, which brings us back to the familiar ground of value judgments and responsibility. Time travel, if possible, doesn't eliminate action and reaction. That's the reality we have now. But time travel does change the nature and magnitude of it. Cause and effect are still in play, but effects are now potentially impermanent. Back to the Future feeds us scenes that show Doc reacting to the happenings around him, like an out-of-control experiment unfolding before his eyes, which it is. And at times, we witness Doc figuring out that the kind of time travel he's created is necessarily disruptive. Maybe at some point or points during Marty's visit, Doc comes to appreciate that once the Pandora's box of time travel has been opened, all that can be done is to make the most responsible choices, but to realize that even a choice to do nothing is also a choice with consequences that may not be so easy to determine. The second time Marty reunites with Doc at the mall, Doc has had 30 years to consider the consequences, and perhaps the folly in believing that doing nothing, particularly in an already modified timeline, is automatically better than doing something. Was returning to the scene with a bulletproof vest a selfish choice? Definitely. Was it strictly selfish, or even destructive? That's harder to say, and makes for great conversation. But when Doc utters these words,
Well, I figured, what the hell?
it makes perfect sense. I know I'm not alone when I say that I really miss seeing this kind of creativity in film. A ton of credit must be given to Robert Zemeckis, Bob Gale, and their entire crew for this movie. In July, Back to the Future celebrates its 40th anniversary of release. While the current choices of new films are seldom this good, any form of art, particularly film, is a time machine of its own. And that means we're not limited to the mediocre present, because good stories outlast their time. As film enthusiasts, we're fortunate that this little gem from 1985 will always be here for us to go back to. I hope to see you in the future. Thanks for listening.